What rugged software is, and I'll try to say this enough times so people can remember it. Ruggedsoftware.org. We started it earlier this spring. Myself, David Rice, and Jeff Williams. David Rice wrote Geekonomics. It's a book about the economics of insecure software. And he's a former NSA crypto guy and Navy intelligence. And then also Jeff Williams is the chair of OWASP. So many of you are familiar with OWASP. I'm recently in the analyst ranks. I don't really like analysts, so I decided to go fight them hands-on, I guess. But I did a lot of work while I was at IBM ISS. And I looked at the space, and I looked at the space big time, like from an orbital view. And essentially, there's like somewhere between $50 billion and $90 billion spent on security. And that's products and services. So just picture on the low end, $50 billion, okay? $50 billion spent on securing random infrastructure. The total spent on software security is less than $500 million. So we're spending 0.5% of our time and energy on the thing that is arguably attacked the most. What's attacked the most? It's not MSRPC, remote activate, buffer overflow like the Blaster days in July of 2003. It's the application layer. It's the top 10 OS stuff that we've known about forever. So everything we've seen, whether it's safe code, BSIM, all excellent work. And what we're trying to do is essentially that 1%. If you look at those highly effective organizations in the BSIM study, 1% of their staff is focused on software security. And that's the leaders. That's the 7 habits of highly effective people, so to speak. So I don't mean to be preachy here, but what rugged really was is we noticed that as a culture, economically, voting with our wallets, when we buy software, when we deploy software, when we choose a SaaS provider or rack space or whatnot, we aren't placing an economic or cultural value on rugged or secure or survivable software. So rugged is not another framework. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's great stuff done by OWASP and SDL, even Agile. There's holy debates over is Agile the friend or enemy of security. Rugged is an attempt to get beyond the 1% of us that care about security. Security is expensive, it's negative, it's the things you can't do. Rugged has a different tonality. It makes sense to your management team. It makes sense to your customers. It makes sense to the people that you're selling to. So we've seen some pretty good use cases in the last 6 months where the US government has swapped out software assurance and replaced the term rugged. Well, why? Rugged is something that you want, you desire, you covet. It implies security, but also implies business valuable things like availability, resilience, supportability, survivability. There's a whole bunch of very attractive business value to the idea of rugged. So it might just be a subtle word tweak, but we are really, really, really good at security research. And we are really, really, really bad at getting the rest of the world to value and want and desire and spend on this thing. Once again, $50 billion in the low end spent on security, and $500 million spent on software security. So we're still buying firewalls and IPSs which don't stop hardly anything. And we need to kind of invert that. It's exactly backwards. So ruggedsoftware.org, we wrote a little manifesto. Line number 4 is my favorite, so just as a teaser. It is that I recognize my code will be used in ways I cannot anticipate, in ways it was not designed, and for longer than it was ever intended. Software is infrastructure. Look up and around, okay? Iron and concrete is physical infrastructure. No one is sitting in this room in perpetual fear that this building is going to collapse upon us. We have come to take it for granted because it is reliable infrastructure. Software is in our cars, in our pockets, in our televisions, in our toasters. Software is everywhere. It is infrastructure, and it's not nearly as reliable. What's the word I came up with today, Jack? Instead of vulnerability, vulnerability.
Yeah.
We have ubiquitous vulnerabilities. There's a near infinite amount of software vulnerability. And as you go through all the great talks tomorrow, through the rest of the week, through DEFCON, ask yourself, are we confusing activity with productivity? Are we confusing being busy with being effective? So rugged, I hope, if you're even remotely interested in it, I'm hoping you start to integrate the rugged terminology into your marketing. If you read a blog about it. If you do speaking at conferences, I will deputize you. Because this is not a product movement, it's ruggedsoftware.org, not .com. And we're really just looking to change the world. We know it's going to take a lot of time, but 0.5% of our spending and activity on the single largest attack surface is kind of backwards. So ruggedsoftware.org. If you're at all interested, take a card, and we'll talk about it later this week. So was that less than 3 minutes?
It's good.
Okay, good.
Fast.
All right.